Hello, welcome to the video. I'm going to do something a little bit different rather than like some performance or whatnot today, or a comparison of gear. I'm going to show you through all of the electric guitars that I own now chronologically as I got them, and talk about what I've learned over the years about pickups and wiring and scallop necks, and coming up to 26 years of playing now, finally kind of deciding what I like and how I achieved that, and conclusions. So that'd be pretty cool. Just to let you know, when I started on like a really cheap Strat copy. It wasn't even a Squire, it was called an Encore. This black thing with what looked like rosewood, which was probably a plywood neck. Terrible guitar, you know, the action was like that high and just sounded dreadful to go along with how dreadful I sounded as well at that point. And I fumbled around for years, and then when I left school I told my mum and dad that apparently you can make a living as a musician. I'd like to try and do that, and I've chosen this music school to go to, etc. and stuff. So they said, oh okay, well we're going to buy you a better instrument that you can have for life, and just something a little bit more professional. So at the time I was into like Racer X and all the kind of shrapnel shredders. So went into the closest music store to me, which was in Windsor, and they had a lot of like kind of low-end guitars, but they had a few Ibanez's, and they had two RG550s and a Paul Gilbert signature. I went for this RG550, which has seen better days. I played this guitar. It was around this time I really kind of like got into technique and stuff, and I started practicing, and so this was a really important guitar, and I played many billions of notes, and I did like all my metronome work in the early days on this guitar, and I haven't used it for such a long time, and it's retired. As you can see, it's very worn. Like, you know, this is real relicking, because I used to take it around with me everywhere and early gigs, etc. And I covered it with stickers, which I used to do back in the early days. So once I got a Strat a couple of years later, I never played this guitar again. And at one point I even took the frets off to try and make a fretless. So I've refretted this badly now and scalloped it. And it's basically an ornamental piece, and I've not used it since I was about 19. And I put in these, it's not even wired up, I just put these bare knuckle pickups that I had in another guitar, a different tremolo, because I didn't have the original one anymore. I'd taken it apart just to have it on the stand, and it's an ornamental shrine, I guess now. Never use it, but yeah, it was a very important guitar for me. Anyway, after a few years of having this guitar, I started gravitating back towards Strats, not just because of Yngwie, but also all my favourite guitarists like Uli Roth, Richie Blackmore, Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eric Johnson. All these guys played the Strat. And the first Strat I ever bought actually was a Japanese pink paisley reissue, which was a 2001 model, I think. I got that in around 2003. And I never really got on that guitar because at the time I was used to this flat radius, and it was a 7.5 radius, so it was a bit like playing that. And it had tiny little frets, and so I never really got into that guitar. It looked great, and it was the only electric guitar I've ever sold, and I've regretted it to this day. I would love that guitar back, and I always think about it. And actually in 2025 the Fender Japan factory brought out a reissue pink paisley, this time with a 70s headstock, but I think it's a bit overpriced for what it was. And then also I end up wanting to get it scalloped and change all the pickups, etc. So it was going to be a massively overinflated guitar, and I'm trying to not buy any more guitars. So I use some discipline and not get it. So after having that for a while, I never really played it. I was still gravitating towards Strats, and I went into Anderton's, which is where the music school was in Guildford, which is now famous on YouTube. And I played pretty much every Strat in there. I really wanted a Strat with a big headstock and vintage white, like Yngwie, but they all had 21 frets. And also at the time, the only ones that they had the 70s reissues were made in Mexico. And Mexican guitars are amazing now, but at the time, they weren't anywhere near as good as the Japanese or Americans. So I resisted, and I ended up getting this guitar. So you may have seen this guitar. So this is a 2004 American Strat. It's almost completely non-original now. The only thing that's original is the body and the covers, and that's it. The neck I've replaced recently. I'll show you the neck in a minute. This is an older neck as well, but it's a Mighty Mike neck that was professionally scalloped with obviously like the Hendrix 70s backwards headstock. Very nice. And they got FS1s in here. And I've changed the bridge as well because well, I don't know about you, but you know, the screw-in Fender arms drive me mad. Yeah, just constantly having to put insulation tape in there, and they don't work as well. So I've got Wilkerson bridge, which has an Allen key, you know, to tighten up. It screws in, and it like a bit like a Goto. I had this guitar. I bought it in 2004. It's a 2004 USA. That's the only guitar I played then until 2018. So you know, around about 15 years or so, I just only used this guitar. And as you can see, it's a genuine relic from lots of gigs. So I had this, obviously the neck sitting around, which is this neck. So recently I've put this guitar together, and these are the original pickups from this guitar and the original scratch plate, and you can see how much it's discolored. This was originally brilliant white, and the body on this was originally Olympic white, but it's really darkened over the years. So this is the original neck. I scalloped this neck, the first neck I ever scalloped. The frets are completely worn out. I do either need to get a complete refret, and maybe I can just get the frets leveled. And it's signed by Uli Roth there. I got to meet at a clinic around 2010 ish, and as you can also see, it's got a huge crack in the neck which goes all the way through to the fretboard. Which when I used to have a half stack and I used to play gigs or rehearse, I always used to put, and I'd go for a smoke when I used to smoke, or just to the toilet, I always used to put the guitar on top of the amp head. And one time I came back and it had fallen off and had a huge crack. So I think that was about 2010 as well. I've never ever repaired it, and it's never made any difference. And so as long as I've had this guitar, almost, it's had that crack in the neck, and it's never been any more of an issue, or changed the sound or anything like that, so I never got it repaired. If it was a Gibson, it would have probably broke off entirely. So yeah, so anyway, this neck was just sitting on the shelf, and I thought, I always wanted a sunburst Strat, and I thought it'd be cool to try and get a sunburst body, and I got this off eBay for 25 English pounds. And I don't know what it is. I mean, the burst on there looks really nice. The guy said it was a Squire body, but it's not routed out like a Squire. It's not a swimming pool. It's just got an SSS routing. So I thought, oh, maybe it is a Fender Metzko or something like that. But it's ridiculously light. Like it actually, when you had this on the strap, you have a bit of a backwards Gibson thing going on, where the neck is heavier than the body. But it sounds really nice. So originally I was just going to put this on there and retire the neck, just have it looking nice on the stand, but it's very resonant. And a bit out of tune at the moment. But yeah, so I will get it the frets leveled, and it's got some amazing, the amazing original pickups from my white Strat, which I think they're called American Standard. They're a bit like Tex-Mex pickups. Yeah, awesome. So, like I said, the only guitar I used was my white American Strat with this neck for 99% of that time. Yeah, I'd play in every band, metal bands, cover bands, everything, and I would always just change the pickups constantly. Like I'd have, because I refused to play like a black Jackson or something at the time, so I always like insisted I use my white Strat, and I'd put in hot rails or something for more of a humbucker, higher output for those occasions. But I always came back to these Fender true single coils, which are really fantastic. Like they're very close to being Tex-Mexes. So with a tube screamer, you get like a nice SRV sound, or and beyond. So yeah, I used this guitar, and around about 2018, I was thinking that. Maybe I could get a new guitar. I never really thought about it. I wasn't ever a massive gearhead until the last few years. I always liked Charvels when I was younger. It's kind of like almost a quintessential 80s guitar, right? And I knew Fender had bought them, and they made a bit of a resurgence and I know like Guthrie had started using Charvels. So I was looking at this guitar. So excuse this guitar, it's going through a bit of a makeover, which I'll explain. It's not that I don't use it anymore. So this is a made in Mexico DK24. It's a superb guitar. It's one of the best I've ever played. It's got not even all the strings on there. It's very resonant, really fantastic instrument. I recorded all of my Paganini album on this, and I arranged the Paganini on this, and that's why a lot of it has like 24, the arrangements work for 24 frets. And I also scalloped this neck, as you can see there, and it's just a beautiful playing thing. Also, Goto 510 bridge, 2-point bridge, and non-lock-in tremolo. As far as non-locking tremolos go, this is the best I've ever played for tuning stability. It really is good. I mean, you're not going to be able to do your dive bombs and Eddie Van Halen type things on there. It will still go slightly out of tune then. But, you know, for just the way I like to play, that kind of thing, excuse the tuning, you know, like Hank Marvin or Brian May type playing chords and using the vibrato bar. You know, it's really great. The reason I kind of stopped playing this guitar and I was getting very frustrated with was because of the neck pickup. I've had tons of neck pickups in here, and it never occurred to me until after a few years of having this guitar is that a pickup that I like on a Strat, a single coil, is there. And on a 24 fret, obviously you can't have the pickup there, so it moves back closer to the middle pickup. So it's never got that, you know, warm, very harmonically rich tone there. It's thinner. Some people like it and they say it works better in the mix and stuff like that, but I always just found it too nasal, and every pickup you put in there, it made it sound like it had a cold. So in the end, I could live with the humbucker. I prefer single coils, which I'll get to. I could live with the humbucker, and I've got very good humbucker in this, a bare knuckle VH2, so it's a bit like a Van Halen, early Van Halen type thing, quite raw. Very nice, but the neck pickup was driving me mad, and I love neck single coil, which is why I got this HSS. I never liked humbuckers in the neck. To me, that was too, even when I played like a really great Les Paul, it was too woolen and too whiny, which just I didn't like at all. Yeah, I was always kind of frustrated with the guitar, but I just love the way it plays. It's the easiest guitar to play in the world, the lowest I've ever got in action. It's just, yeah, it's a really lovely thing, very resonant, nice guitar, and it's pink. But anyway, I'm going to maybe put a super distortion in this. This is why I've got no pickups in here at the moment, and no electrics, and I'll have a little fiddle around. And if I can't find one, I'll probably just end up wiring the humbucker to the output and just use it as a single humbucker guitar, which probably 24 fret guitars maybe should be anyway. Because you just, well, for me, it just changes the tone too much of the neck, and it's not what I want. It's too bright. Anyway, I bought another one of these, which you've probably seen, the brown Sunburst, which is just sitting in a case, taken apart at the moment. Never really got on with that guitar. It was quite bland compared to this, which had a lot of character and much better tap tone overall. I really got into Charvels anyway, and a few years later, I got this one. So this is what's on the serial number? This is a 2020 COVID guitar. 2020 So Cal 1, which I was looking in the Charvel catalogue, and I always wanted a vintage white Strat, obviously, because of Mr. Malmsteen. It originally comes with a HH configuration. I thought I'd give that a go. At least it's 22 frets this time, or the pickup will be in the right place. And for once and for all, it proved to me that I don't like playing humbuckers. Humbuckers is a great sound, and I'm not going to rag on humbuckers at all. I think they're awesome. Just for me, playing personally, I always prefer the single coil, and that's because of the magnetic window of them. They're just picking up a smaller part of the string. And coming from a background of playing classical guitar very seriously for a long time, you know, you have fingernails obviously for that, but classical guitar, you move your finger around a lot, plucking fingers a lot around the strings. You know, you can come up here for a brighter sound, and up here it's a brassier sound, and here over the sound hole it's very warm and harmonically rich. And you're only picking a little tiny bit of the string, you know, and that's what single coils sound like to me. Obviously, you know, you're picking up this part of the string when you're on here and this part, etc. But So this guitar once and for all made me realise that after doing a few modifications and a new scratch plate and putting single coils, that I am a single coil man forever now. Yeah, it's just perfect. It's the sound I hear in my head, and it's just a sound I love. When I play a humbucker, it sounds like the pickup. It doesn't sound like the guitar anymore. Where, you know, every guitar, I don't believe in tone wood and stuff like that, but the way the wood vibrates, passes through the bridge, and then what the pickup picks up, that's what you're getting. So that's why, you know, otherwise you could just get I don't know, a palette and put some pickups on there and a good neck, and you'd have a great sounding guitar. You know, the wood. So the way the wood resonates and acts with the bridge, etc., it is making a big difference. And with a single coil, you get more of that sound. Where with a humbucker, sorry, I found that you hear the pickup a lot more, or, you know, to the ultimate extreme, an EMG or something like that, and then you are just hearing the pickup. Even though, of course, it is an electrical sound that it's making in the end of the day. But certainly, I do think, not that maple or anything like that makes a difference, but I find the more resonant guitars are the ones, to my ear, that sound better. So that's what I go for in a guitar, is actually more resonance. So this guitar came with a Floyd Rose. I hated Floyd Rose from the time I had my Ibanez, because that was, even though Goto I think made the best bridges, that was their cheap, you know, die cast, you know, lowest of the low range locking tremolos, which was awful and just wouldn't hold tune. Also, I didn't know how to set it up at the time, etc., and stuff like that. But so this is a Floyd Rose 1000, so it's not even their best one, but it holds tune fantastically well. I've learned how to set them up properly now, which is all about balance. You know, that it actually does work. You know, when once I've stretched all the strings in and I lock after I've changed the strings, it does stay in tune. It's a massive faff to actually change the strings. I can change the strings on a Strat in like 5 minutes, or a non-locking trem in like 5 minutes, and this is more like half an hour, you know, faffing around. But it is worth it in the end for the tuning stability you get. Obviously, you do lose. It's got a brighter tone. So this guitar is brighter, not because it's maple, it's because of you know, the bridge on there. But yeah, I really love this guitar. It's got an amazing neck, beautiful fretwork, feels really lovely. You know, it's quite it's got a very kind of like stratty, quite thin sound in a nice way, but very articulate. So I've got DiMarzio HS3s in here. This is my all HS3 guitar, and it really suits it well. And I think if you watch my video on Out for Blood, I think that really is a good showcase for this guitar and how it sounds and why I really like it. Not my absolutely favourite guitar. It's not exactly what I look for in a guitar in sound wise, but it is a guitar I really love. So at this point, I'm massively into Charvels. I was on like Facebook, Charvel owners groups, etc. And I was looking at the old Charvels, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have a Charvel from 1986, which was the year I was born. I always wanted a guitar from 1986. So I was looking around at different ones. One day I saw a Charvel Spectrum on there, and it was love at first sight, because I love a dinky body, the dinky shaped body, and I love reverse headstocks, and I love pointed headstocks, you know, the Concord headstock. I think it's awesome. And this guitar was single coils, not humbuckers, which, you know, obviously all Charvels and Jacksons are for the most part. So it was really love at first sight, Charvel Spectrum. So I went on Reverb, and there was one on there, a blue one, and it was actually in the UK. The one I saw was a seafoam green. I could put a picture up on here now of that guitar, and seafoam green or surf green, that kind of colour. It's actually my favourite colour. So I was really like, oh, well, I want one of those. So I saw that there was actually one on Reverb, so I thought I'll just wait for a seafoam green to come up. And I would go on Reverb every day for like the next 2 years, and it never came up. There was a pink one. The pink one's very cool as well in America, but I wasn't going to get it shipped from America. It would cost a fortune. It become a very expensive guitar. And I actually gave up. And then one day I was looking again at old Charvels, and then I was like, oh, maybe I'll have a look for one of those Spectrums again. And it was still that blue one that I'd seen 2 years previous. And it was a very good price, almost an old-fashioned prices compared to how the second-hand market had gone. And I decided to buy it. And it was this guitar here, which I got in February 23. So I thought, I'm gonna get this, it'll be a good stopgap. I've got the blue and I've carried on looking, but this is absolutely an amazing guitar. And in my top 2 guitars now, my main guitar along with another one that we'll get to. I love the sound. This is a very lively guitar, and what I mean by that, it's very resonant and it's got a lot of harmonic overtones. So it's a guitar that really screams. I'm not going to pick it up necessarily acoustically, but you might get an idea. So originally this comes with Jackson pickups, because that's who owned Charvel at the time. Jackson, back in the 80s, 90s, up until Fender bought them out. So it has a lot of similarities with Jackson guitars of the time. And it had these active Jackson pickups, which I did actually quite like. I had them in there for about a year, and I recorded my album Guitar Vice on there, etc. I've done lots of videos on there with the original pickups. But recently I've decided, which we'll get to in a sec, that my pickup of choice is a DiMarzio FS1 or a DiMarzio HS3. Unfortunately, these guitars, as you can see, are not routed out for a flange that you get in a single coil. You know, the little lip, the D, which the wires are usually soldered to. So I have got a DiMarzio HS3 in this here, and I just, because it's under the pick guard, I just hacked out the root in. It didn't have to be a neat job, so I hacked it out and chiseled it in there. And I wanted there to be a DiMarzio FS1, but Seymour Duncan, the SSL5, that's their pickup based on the FS1, which they made for Dave Gilmour, who used FS1s in the 70s, and that got him over to Seymour Duncan. So this is an SL5, because Seymour Duncans will make all of their pickups without a flange, no problem. DiMarzio will as well, but they won't deliver it out of the USA. So I got this SSL5, and it is very, very close. It's like 95% there to an FS1. So I've kind of got an FS1 in there and an HS3 there. That's a pickup not wired up. So it's 3-way switch, neck, both pickups out of phase in the middle, and then just the bridge, and that's how I like it. No tone control. That's one thing. I just disconnect the tone control on all my guitars now, because I never use it, and you get a little bit less impedance. And I think the simpler the wiring, people might want to disagree, but the guitars I've had with crazy wiring, with like, you know, split cores and tons of different 11 different ways to have pickup combinations on your guitar, and that usually sound worse than if you just like wire. I think if you just wire a pickup straight to the output, sounds great, but if you just put a pot in there, it doesn't make so much of a difference. So I like to make my wiring as simple as possible, and it's always pickups to the pickup selector, ground to the volume, and then to the output. That's how I wire all my guitars, because I never use the tone. So what's the point wiring them up? Like I said, I really wanted a Seafoam Green Spectrum, so I carried on looking, and then after all that looking, just 2 months later, I came across this guitar, which is this. This one is actually a Model 8, which they made only in 1988. It's got a few, it is basically the same guitar, it's just got a few subtle differences. One, let's get this. One, the pickup, the lock-in tremolo is not recessed, so it's like Van Halen. And it's got more of a Strat, well, it's got a Strat, shaped body here, where this has a cutaway, so it's a little bit more, well, it doesn't make a huge difference, but it makes it a little bit easier to play. And also the neck is shimmed, so you can probably see there, so it comes up at an angle. So the non-recessed tremolo, unlike Van Halen, can sit floating. Sound-wise, this is a much more mellow guitar, and a rounder sound, not so lively and sharp and hard and screaming as the blue one. So it's quite a nice. It's nice for guitars to have different. It's quite nice when you have different models of the same guitar, that how different they all sound and what different characters. And that's the excuse for having so many guitars, right? So I got this guitar, it was on sale in France, so from a very cool guy, Christian, who's just written a book actually on 80s Japanese, made in Japan guitars, not just Charvels, but Jackson, ESP, etc. All these cool super strats, and it's just a really nice thing, this guitar. Beautiful lacquer, and I can't get through to you, like, it looks bright on camera, but in real life it's ridiculous how fluorescent it is. This guitar didn't play perfectly out of the box, even though it's immaculate condition for a 40-year-old or 38-year-old guitar now. So the difference with the Model 8 is it came with a Cala locking nut, which was awful because, one, the action at the bridge was more like 2mm. It was up here, so until you got to about here, everything would be horrendously out of tune, and it had no radius. So the next 10, this had no radius. It was completely flat, so every string was the same action coming off. So I managed to fill the holes on this and re-drill them and put like a regular Floyd Rose locking nut. And I changed the tremolo, which was a Jackson JT5, which was okay, but yeah, I could put a Goto 1996 T on this, which is in my opinion is the ultimate lock-in trem. It's just fantastic. So yeah, it's a really nice thing. And I've got 3 SS L5 Seymour Duncans in here, which sounds particularly good in the neck, possibly better actually than FS1 does sound in the neck, which is, it's just slightly brighter than FS1, but like I said, it's really close to being an FS1. I've got an idea actually. I was looking at an FS1 the other day that I've got, and I actually think I could saw off the flange and manage to not take the wires off, because they actually do come out of the pickup and then through a hole on the flange rather than being soldered to the flange. So I'm gonna try that actually, and just take off with the hacksaw the flange, and it might actually fit in one of these guitars. But otherwise, yeah, it's wired the same. Actually, it's a 5-way switch and it's wired like a Strat. So position 1 is the bridge, these 2, out of phase, middle, out of phase. So the middle pickup I've just wired back to front. So it's reverse polarity. But yeah, I love this guitar. And I think it's a really cool guitar with a lot of history and amazing condition. It's got hardly any dinks on there. For such an old, nearly as old as me. The blue one, incidentally, is 1990, so it's also really getting on 36 years, nearly as old as me. So, what I like about Spectrums is I love Strats so much, but you know, I never just wanted to be like an Yngwie clone. I wanted to have my own identity as well, even though I am massively inspired, obviously, by the Maestro. I wanted to have my own identity, and also my technique does go beyond what's always possible on a Strat. So it's nice to have these kind of things, which, you know, are almost like a Strat, because I got the same pickup configuration. They're both 25-inch scale length. Just the only difference is it has a locking tremolo, which changes the tone slightly. It makes it a bit slightly thinner and brighter. But it's pretty close. So yeah, I really love these guitars, and I thought, yeah, I'm just going to play for Spectrums forever and ever. And the beginning of last year, I was watching the Yngwie REH video, and I always really loved that gold Strat in there. And I was thinking, maybe I can make a Parkcaster, which would look nice. It doesn't have to be the best playing thing, but I could have a gold Malmsteen Strat, a little bit like that. And this was the result. I've made a video on this in the past, but I'm just going to go over it. So anyway, this guitar turned out to be a revelation. One, because I got the neck for a really good price on eBay. It's brand new. It's a all parts neck, and I got it for a very good price on eBay. And obviously, to me, you know, the neck is what makes a guitar. You know, it's what you got your fingers on. It's the kind of connection between the human body and the wood. And once I bolted it onto the body that I got, which is new, made in England, Shoreline Gold. Once I bolted it to the body and I got the bridge on there before I had a pick guard or any electrics or anything like that, you know, I played it and it was just the most amazing sound. The best guitar I'd ever played, and I was like, oh, I'm really onto something here. Yeah, it's an incredible guitar, this. The best guitar I'd ever played up to this was my best friend. He's got a 59 Les Paul reissue, which cost about £6,000, and it is a really amazing guitar. And what's really great about that guitar actually is, you know, you have every guitar you play, it's kind of got certain spots in the neck which sounds massive, and then you might get some thinner spots, like on my Ingve style Charvel Strat. Sounds fantastic in this octave, but when you get past the 12th fret, it's a little bit thinner, more metallic. So I've always found that with every guitar I've had, that there's certain spots which sound massive. But like that guitar, everywhere on this neck just sounds great. It sounds huge, unplugged. Probably not going to get it from. I just love this guitar. It just sounds so good. It's not easy to play. It's got a 50 spec neck. It's not 7.5 radius actually. It is a 9 radius, which I gave it a light scallop, like the early Ingve, which is nice. Sometimes I really love scallop necks, and when you got the extreme scallops, you play them a lot, you kind of get really used to it. And when you go into non-scallop, you really want those to be scallops as well. So this is a nice middle ground. That it's a bit like having huge frets. You get enough of the grip, but it isn't this huge, ridiculous scallop. But the big revelation as well is I put Dimarzio FS1 in these. I wanted this to be like a Malmsteen type Strat. And my favourite tone is the Alcatraz and Rising Force. The earlier the better. And he was using Dimarzio FS1s at the time, so I thought I'd go with those. And yeah, it's absolutely by far my favourite pickup. To me, it's perfect. It's that smooth mid sound that you got from you know, the Rising Force album. Yeah, it's just class, as well as keeping, you know, the Strat magnetic windows. So it's certainly not humbucker output, but it is, you know, a bit more than a Strat, and it's smoother than a Strat, which is, you know, a bit more jagged. That glassy sound. It's still a Strat sound, but it's just smoother. I just love it. Wanted to have, and that's what I've, you know, got Dimarzio's in all my guitar now. I have a HS3 as well. HS3 is great. And the reason I put it on my blue Spectrum and HS3 in the neck is because you get the articulation when it's really fast, where this is very warm in the neck of FS1. It was designed for the bridge, so sometimes when you're doing the really crazy stuff, it just kind of a bit too warm and muffled, not as articulate. It's still really nice, but you know, it's a bit more Robin Trower than Jason Becker, you know. So yeah, but you know, I just love this guitar, and it's made me, you know, I was fully Mr. Spectrum, but also, so it's brought me back to Strats a little bit, and just because it sounds so good, and it's worth, even though it's hard to play, it's got a big neck, the action's quite high, smaller frets, it's well worth it because it just sounds so good. I love it. It cost me £450, this guitar altogether, to put it all together. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Partcasters. That's what I love about the Strat, is it's just so easy to such a simple design, like a Telecaster, and easy to put together yourself. And I like that you can swap necks on them and stuff like that, to get the neck that suits that instrument better. So in conclusion, over all my years, I've decided absolutely Strat configuration, 21 or 22 frets, so the pickup can stay in the right position, even though a 24 fret neck makes so much sense. Just for me, moving the pickup from there to around about here, you know, it's a huge difference, and it just loses that lovely warm sound. A 6-point bridge sounds far superior to a 2-point bridge, which sounds superior then to a Floyd Rose. But you know, obviously it's about compromises. So yeah, the Floyd Rose, you do compromise a tiny bit of the sound, but it's still an amazing sound, and just maybe isn't as round and warm. It's a bit more of an aggressive, but it's suited then for like the heavier stuff and metal. So yeah, absolutely. For the rest of the time now, I'll play either Strats or Spectrums, and hopefully I'll be able to get some more Spectrums, and because they got awesome colours. I love the Seafoam Green. That is my dream guitar, and I also like the hot pink one. So that maybe you can want to check out what they look like. But yeah, no, I'll just play Strats and Spectrums forever now, and it's everything. They did. Them two guitars do everything I want. So these two guitars are basically my main guitars now. My orange Spectrum also is really amazing, but this is just slightly more to my taste. It just screams, and it's just awesome to play. And then this thing is a lot harder to play, but it just sounds so good. You know, definitely the best guitar I've ever played, and the best sounding guitar that I own. Even though all the guitars that I've shown you today are actually really amazing, fine instruments, and they all do a job. And you know, I instinctively know when I'm recording and stuff that, you know, this is the sound I want, or I'm going to play this on there today. So it's not just about having as many guitars as possible. I'm not really interested in that. I mean, I already think I've got too many, but they actually all do a job and have like a certain sound. So there you go. I thought it'd be cool to go through what I've got. See you in another video. Peace.